Councillors, public, could we all take our seats, please? Could we all take our seats, please?
All members have
Great, thank you. Welcome. Thank you, councillors, for attending at such short notice. It's rare to call urgent meetings like this, but it is important that we're here to debate the item on the agenda and confirm our position. Also, welcome members of the public in the room and on live stream. If any members of the public don't wish to be filmed, please let us know as soon as possible. The debate will be undertaken through the chair, and I remind you that it must be undertaken in a professional and respectful manner without the use of divisive, inflammatory or discriminatory language. The debate is about our communities and it's not about government policy. Please keep background noise to a minimum, including turning our mobile phones to silent. We'll be using the queue to speak function. I'm sure you all know it by now, but the main thing is when you press that button to be in the queue to speak, then leave that button alone. You'll be queued in automatically. Turning to the agenda, item 1, if you bear with me, is announcements which will include apologies for absence. And I invite the monitoring officer to make any announcements and inform of any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from councillors Richard Alcock, Mick Bradshaw, Nick Clark, Dawn Dicker, Sarah Mildmay-White, Sarah Pugh's here, Karen Richardson, Karen Soons, Andrew Speed, Sarah Stamp and Indy Wijanayaka.
Thank you. Councillor Lukanuk.
Additional apology from Councillor Shipp.
Thank you, Councillor Lukanuk. Thank you. I think that's it. Item 2 is declarations of interest, just to remind members of their responsibility to declare any interest no later than when the item is reached. Are there any interests to be declared now? I don't think so. Right. Item 3 is public participation. This meeting has been called at short notice, and on this occasion I'm exercising discretion regarding the deadline for submitting questions or statements. 5 minutes will be allowed for each question or statement to be put and answered, with a total of 30 minutes for the entire item. I think we have 5 speakers, so we should be able to fit that in. Just in case, if not all those who have registered have a chance to speak, please send in your questions or statements and they will help inform ongoing discussions. So the first speaker I have is Councillor John Bower, the Chair of Barnham Parish Council.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak, and I would like to begin by thanking West Suffolk Council for the leadership it's shown in bringing forward this motion. The people of Barnham appreciate that their concerns are being heard. Barnham is a quintessential Suffolk village. At the 2021 census, our population was just 584 people. It's a small rural community whose character has been shaped over generations. Our concerns are not simply about the principle of asylum accommodation, but about the process, the suitability of the site, and the scale of the change being proposed. Residents first became aware that something was happening when works began at RAF Barnham. West Suffolk Council then sought clarification from the Home Office and was told that RAF Barnham was not among the sites under consideration. Yet within days, national media were contacting us ahead of an embargoed announcement. At no point were our MPs, county councillors, district councillors or parish council formally informed. That is not meaningful consultation. It is not transparency. Decisions of this scale should not arrive as a surprise to the communities expected to live with them. We recognise the government's objective of reducing the use of hotels for asylum accommodation. However, replacing unsuitable hotels with an equally unsuitable rural military site is not a sustainable option. The scale of this proposal is also wholly disproportionate. The Home Office proposes to accommodate up to 1,250 single adult male asylum seekers adjacent to a village of 584 residents. More than 2 people for every resident of the village. By comparison, other former military sites operate on different scale. At Crowborough, there are around 500 residents accommodated adjacent the town of approximately 22,000. At Wethersfield, 1,000 people have been accommodated alongside a village of roughly 1,300. Those figures matter because they show what is happening elsewhere and how different this proposal is. This is not simply a question of whether RAF Barnham can physically accommodate 1,250 people. It is whether Barnham can absorb them. That's not the same question. The suitability of the site itself is also a serious concern. Barnham has very few local amenities, no shop, no pub, and very limited access to services within walking distance. The surrounding roads are not designed for pedestrian use, and there is no safe or continuous footway to larger centres. Public transport is limited. This is an isolated rural location with very little infrastructure to support either the existing community, never mind a large additional population. In practical terms, the camp is not a location where residents can reasonably access services or where services can easily reach them. It's difficult to see how this site meets the needs of the individuals who would be housed there. If people are awaiting asylum decisions, they should be accommodated where they have access to basic services, transport and community facilities, not in an isolated former military establishment. There are also understandable concerns about the security of the site. It is not a detention centre and residents will generally be free to leave during the day, and there have been well-documented cases nationally of individuals leaving asylum accommodation and not returning. We fully accept that the majority of the people will comply with the system and present no issues. But in a village of fewer than 600 people, even a very small number of incidents has a disproportionate impact. It's therefore reasonable to ask whether policing, safeguarding and emergency services have been properly assessed and resourced for a change of this scale. The proposal is already also having consequences in the village. Parents have told us that they are considering withdrawing their children from Barnham School due to its proximity to the site. Even a small reduction in pupil numbers could threaten the long-term viability of a highly valued village school, and once lost, it's an asset that will not be replaced. Perhaps most concerning is that there appears to be no published assessment of the impact on infrastructure, services, or the host community. If this were a conventional housing development for 1,250 people, it would require extensive consultation, transport assessment, environmental review, and infrastructure planning.
Excuse me, Councillor Bow, I'm using my discretion. It's over 5 minutes now. If you could conclude in about 20 seconds, that would
be thank you.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I will summarise then. Barnham has been a thriving rural community for generations. The decision before you this afternoon will shape whether it remains one. It's not simply a question of accommodating 1,250 people, as I said, it's whether Barnham can absorb them. We're asking for fairness, transparency and proportionality in decisions that will define its future for years to come. And I therefore respectfully ask members to support the motion before you without amendment and to send a clear and united message to the Home Office that this proposal is neither proportionate nor appropriate for Barnham. Thank you.
Could we keep applause down, please? In fact, non-existent if possible. We've got a lot to get through. We've only got half an hour. Now, I now have Councillor Martin Robinson from Suffolk County Council.
Thank you also for the opportunity to speak today. I appreciate it very much. I've got a short statement I'd like to give, and then I've got a question for the Leader of the Council, Councillor Waterman. So, as mentioned, I'm Councillor for St Olaves and Tollgate, and my emphasis is both about the RAF Barnum today, but also very particularly about local residents. I read with interest the open letter from our MP, Peter Prinsley. In it, he welcomes the housing of irregular migrants arriving in the UK via illegal routes at RAF Barnum and expresses concern for their welfare, including access to education, mental health support, translation services, meaningful activities during the day, safe travel and security. Notably, however, his letter avoids any reference to GP and dental services that we are told will be made available, as well as other allowances will be provided. We've yet to receive detailed cost information. A figure currently circulating is the baseline dispersal cost projection of £23.25 per day per person. This is the figure used in the recent comments and commitments made by Home Secretary Shabama Mahmood in relation to a proposed £10,000 annual recovery from each irregular migrant. I'll not pursue that point today, but let's look at the figures really. When all costs are considered, a much more realistic annual cost of RAF Barnum is likely to be between £50 and £70 million a year. It is a matter of public record that district councils will receive or do receive a Grant 7 payment of £3,500 per migrant to support increased dispersal accommodation. In this case, in our case, that would amount to around £4.4 million a year. So I'm coming close to my question now. My question is on behalf of the residents of St Olaves and Tollgate, but also more widely, the residents of Bury St Edmunds. Last year, the father of a family of 4 asked me to help him find NHS dental provision. I couldn't find any locally, and he eventually secured treatment in Haverhill. 3 weeks ago, a dear pensioner contacted me because she needs replacement dentures. Having saved what little she could, she responded to an advertisement that suggested treatment would cost £900. That was all she had. After attending, she was told that the cost would be £1,800, and she was also charged £65 for her appointment consultation. She's approaching the point where she can't eat properly. I've also spoken to Mark Jones, founder of Toothless in England, who described cases of people pulling out their own teeth, developing sepsis and dying. So my question to you, Councillor Waterman, is this. Will you use the £4.4 million annual funding to establish a discretionary fund to help residents with dental access, including travel to out-of-town dentist, mean-tested assistance for urgent treatment such as dentures, and emergency support for those suffering toothache who cannot afford extractions? If not, why not?
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Waterman, your time is limited, I'm afraid, to answer that question. Thank you.
Well, I won't comment about what other people have said or not said. I don't think that's appropriate. And also, most of what Councillor Robinson has said is not relevant to this motion. But I just will point out to him that any funding that comes from central government to local authority, whether it be district or, as he will know, county councils, for this purpose is ring-fenced. So there's not really a lot of sense in his question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman, and thank you for being brief.
May I just respond? I didn't give my question before I came today and it wasn't disbarred.
10 seconds.
OK, if you can do it in about 20 seconds, Councillor Robinson, you can.
Well, first of all, I'd say that I did have my question checked before I came here today, and it wasn't disbarred as being irrelevant. I would ask you, Councillor Waterman, if you've got a heart for migrants who come here to this country illegally, why haven't you for my residents? You could spend the 4.4 million or find money from somewhere else.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Time's up. The next member to speak, member of the public to speak, is Paul Hardwick, a resident of Barnham. Clearly not here. I'll go on to the next person on the list, who is Susan Dowling, a resident of Bury St Edmunds.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a brief statement I want to make as a concerned member of the public. In the last figures I actually saw about asylum seekers, it said they make up approximately 6% of the immigrants in the United Kingdom. In recent headlines in the media and the images are all of the need to protect our borders, our healthcare, and our homes, and fears of our culture being destroyed by hostile immigrants. Lost, I feel, in all of this are the real people who are scared, vulnerable, and often exploited on their journeys over here. They, like all of us, are searching for safety from violence, war zones, prosecution, and the future they will be probably escaping catastrophic changes in the climate. Many of them have a real contribution to make to society, which is often disregarded. The occupants of the houses recently attacked in Northern Ireland were an example of this. Many of them were working in local hospitals and other health settings. In the UK, we have a democratic history of tolerance and a sense of wanting to provide for those escaping danger. Just think of the response to those from Ukraine a few years ago, and many people ended up living with British families. I hope that this will continue and that the people of Suffolk will carry on welcoming those who seek refuge. The site at Barnham sounds unsuitable for myriad reasons, but I trust that the Council will determine alternative actions and means to support vulnerable asylum seekers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Councillor Waterman, would you care to respond?
Dowd or Susan in my introduction of the motion, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman. The next member of the public I have is Claire Higson, who's a resident of Pakenham.
Afternoon, everybody. Well, here we are again, about to have a really horrible weaponised moment in our perfect bit of Suffolk. And I just really hope that everybody in this room, you who are elected, our leaders and representatives, will make it really, really, really safe for all of us who live around that area. My friend was killed on a bike on that corner. Nothing has improved since then. Yeah, I think it's absolutely terrible the government haven't consulted. I'm retired now, but I know that those sewage treatment works won't hold 1,200 people. I don't really understand how, if we've suddenly got 1,200 spare spaces in somewhere that was not fit for human habitation, that we as humans are prepared to house people in places that, as far as I'm aware, is just for dogs, the military dogs, that's all it was. So I'm not really sure where the money's going to go, but are we going to have local jobs? There's a lot of money coming in to make us accept this deal. So do you think it's possible that we'll be able to make something of it? Will we be able to transform something for the local village? Or is this just dumping it? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. Councillor Waterman, would you care to? No. Okay. Thank you. Just to double check on Paul Hardwick if he has arrived in the meantime. No, thank you. Well, thank you all those public speakers. I know it's not easy, but we'll now move on to item 4. on the agenda, which is the proposed use of RAF Barnham as asylum accommodation. I'll ask Councillor Waterman to introduce and move the motion.
Many thanks, Chair. And can I say thank you to the public speakers who I think spoke sensibly and intelligently about what is an issue that many people are interested in. And also thank you very much to councillors for finding the time and making the effort to come to a meeting organised on a World Cup day at short notice. We will finish early enough, I'm sure, to get to the World Cup match. There are, I know, many views about immigration and the way the current and previous governments have handled it. These are often divisive questions. There are strong feelings on all sides, and often these debates can lead to extreme views and extreme actions. And we've seen that elsewhere in the country. That's not the way this council operates, and nor should it be. We're here to serve the residents of West Suffolk to the best of our ability. We can leave the high politics, the national politics, the international politics to those who are best qualified to deal with it. So we're not debating any of that here today. Rather, we're just considering a simple and important motion which outlines our reasoned opposition to citing the proposed asylum seeker accommodation at the MOD base at Barnham. I first heard that this was being considered by the Home Office on Thursday last week. I then had a meeting with Home Office officials on Friday lunchtime. Armed with the information I'd been given, I took the time to consult with various people, amongst others Councillor Andrew Smith, the ward member, and our local MP, Peter Prinsley. I also considered the views of many other people, residents, other MPs from adjoining constituencies, other councillors, and many others. I came to the personal view as leader of this council that Barnham was not a suitable site for the purpose proposed. Some other local leaders have stopped there. However, I wanted to have the strongest hand possible in working with the Home Office over this proposal. Therefore, I am seeking council support for this motion. It would mean, if I get your support, that when I speak with the Home Office, I can say I have the backing of the council. The Home Office are much more likely to listen to a leader who has the solid support of his council behind him, especially if that position is grounded in simple, practical considerations, rather than wider views about policy, immigration, and those wider issues. For these reasons, I ask for your support for this motion, which will strengthen our hand in these discussions and which will show that we are speaking as a responsible and practical body with the best interests of our residents, but also everyone else involved, at the heart of what we're saying. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman. Councillor Andrew Smith, I ask you to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to be able to second this motion. It's proof positive that this is a cross-party issue on behalf of our residents. We're not being political, and that's to be welcomed. My ward includes Barnham Parish and its community. RAF Barnham is clearly part of that parish. The parish of Barnham has under 600 residents, a village hall, a school, a primary school for 5 to 11-year-olds, plus a breakfast club, and the parish church. That is the extent of the facilities. Because there are no other facilities or shops, save for the fact there's a publicly accessible play area between the school and the village hall, so it's mainly used by school children, being picked up by parents. It is a small rural village and is one of the crown jewels in West Suffolk. In my experience, the community is mutually supportive and of a generous spirit. I work closely with Barnham Parish Council, and I know that they are considered to be proactive, active, and are more than an asset to the community. In actual fact, I do apologise. I did clap the chairman, in all fairness, because I thought he did an excellent job. We have in front of us a simple motion on what could become a complex issue. But let's stick to the issue about location. That if supported, and if we support the motion, it will reassure Barnham residents that they are not alone. In my opinion, and there is no guarantee, only cool and rational heads making intelligent, evidence-based arguments are more likely to succeed in favour of the widely held community view. And it's against that background, members, that I urge you all to support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I was hoping when I asked you, you'd just say yes, and then I was going to ask you if you reserve the right to speak. However, I'm taking this as you have reserved the right to speak and spoken. Thank
My
you.
apologies, Chair.
No problem. I will now open the debate. Does anybody wish to speak on this motion? First name is Councillor Stennett.
Thank you, Chair. Before we speak today, I believe there's a moment to listen and understand the sheer scale of the impact this change of use for Barnham Camp is going to have on the people who live in close proximity, including Thetford. On this occasion, all of us should be quick to listen and slow to speak. The voice of those people who will be affected carry real concern, worry and a palpable fear. Just how on earth this is fair? Well, the answer is simple, it's not fair, and frankly, it's a bad decision to use Barnham Camp for this new use. Bad because if the possible outcomes and practicalities of the Scouse site had been considered and assessed properly, then we would not need to be here today. Why? Because common sense would have concluded the site is totally unacceptable. Well, I've listened, I can inform Council today that I'm totally opposed to this ill-conceived proposition or decision, whatever it's called. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stennett. Councillor Wakelam.
Thank you, Chair. This proposal by the government has created a lot of fear and anger among our residents over the past few days. Whipped up and fomented, it has to be said, by some whose motivation is not concern for the community, if they are even part of that community, but hatred of all immigrants, pure and simple. However, the fears expressed by the Chair of Barnham Council and by my colleagues here are entirely valid, and I believe we all hear and accept them. The government has itself to blame for this, their high-handed approach to our community, its total failure to consult with us on this proposal, the lack of granular detail about how the camp is to be managed, and in particular the lack of a timetable and information about how claims of asylum to be processed, practically guaranteed that local people would feel threatened and disempowered. Moreover, there is no indication at all that they will provide funds to help the community which be affected, nor indeed to provide the necessary infrastructure. There is a world where asylum seekers and immigrants are welcome in our communities. The United Kingdom has a long and honourable tradition of taking in people fleeing war and persecution. This week in the Bury Free Press, we can read about one such refugee, Andres Barabbas, who in 1956 fled the Russian tanks in his homeland of Hungary. After completing his studies here, he developed expertise in vascular surgery and eventually became a consultant surgeon at West Suffolk Hospital. His skills and dedication benefited many of our community, but he's not an exception. The BMA has approximately 1,200 medically qualified refugees on its databases. As one of our speakers has pleaded, let this council continue to support all in our community, including those who have been compelled to leave their homes and come here. We have all, I believe, received an email from a resident in which he talks about the welcome Thetford has given to newcomers of all colours and creeds, from London overspill, the large community of Portuguese migrants, Eastern European migrants, and recently asylum seekers, and that all have been welcomed and now part of the diverse community that is that town. He is not a racist, but he too fears the impact of this proposal as currently presented to us, and so do I. We need far more information before any decision is made, and we need government to listen to us. And I wish every strength to our leader when he tries to negotiate with them. So it is right that we as representatives of our community should be debating this issue. What I do have concerns about is debating it today, before any real effort, as far as I can see, has been made to engage with the Home Office, to calm community fears and anger, and to ameliorate the legitimate concerns we all have. I'm concerned that it looks performative. Nevertheless, I have decided to support this motion given the very real concerns behind it and the intentions expressed in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wakelam. I now have Councillor Rokes.
Thank you, Chair. And I thank Councillor Waterman for making the time to hopefully get us home for the World Cup. Unfortunately, to watch it with my friends, I have to go to Norwich, so I don't know if I'm going to make it in time. But RAF Barnham simply isn't fit for accommodation for anyone, let alone asylum seekers. And I think I agree with much of what the chair of the local parish had to say. There simply isn't the infrastructure for it, for both asylum seekers and for residents. Asylum seekers deserve places where their needs and wants are recognised, and RAF Barnham simply isn't that place. Their dignity, sadly, will not be valued. But I do want to quickly put onto record that the rhetoric that has surrounded some of this debate, not here, but in the wider local sphere, has not been handled well. And we must support asylum seekers in everything we do, which is part of the reason that we should vote this report through and not allow asylum seekers to be housed in somewhere that will not value them, not value their dignity, and not value their well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rokes. Just to remind councillors, we're here for a very important debate, and I don't think any context today should really cause us to have any other considerations at the moment, certainly in terms of time, and I'll not be exercising any discretion for what has already been mentioned a couple of times. Thank you. The next speaker is Councillor Whittam.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would just like to say that I'm in total support of this resolution and will be voting in favour of it. I think RAF Barnham, for all the reasons that have already been said, is totally unsuitable from both the residents' point of view and from the point of view of the people that would be housed there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whittam. Councillor Hofstensberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support the motion before us. I want to begin by making one thing absolutely clear. This debate is not about people who seek asylum. Many are fleeing war, persecution, and imaginable hardship. They deserve to be treated with dignity and humanity. This debate is whether RAF Barnham is the right place for accommodation on the scale being proposed. I simply do not believe it is. Barnham is a rural community of fewer than 600 people with limited infrastructure, limited public transport, and limited local services. Those are facts, not opinions. If 1,200 people were accommodated there, the pressure on healthcare, policing, transport and other public services would inevitably increase. That would affect existing residents, but it would also affect the very people the Home Office is trying to accommodate. We should be asking whether this proposal serves anyone well. There is also understandable concern understandable concern within the local community about the site proximity to Barnham Primary School. Parents understandably are anxious because based on the information available so far, the proposed accommodation would primarily house adult men. I want to be absolutely clear that those concerns should not be interpreted as hostility towards people seeking asylum. Rather, they reflect the uncertainty created by lack of information and consultation. Parents naturally want reassurance about safeguarding, security, and how the site will be managed. Those are reasonable questions and they deserve clear and honest answers. There is also the environmental context. RAF Barnham sits within the buffer zone of internationally important protected habitats. For years, those planning constraints have limited what development has been considered appropriate in this area. It is therefore an entirely reasonable question to ask whether this proposal is suitable in that location. As councillors, our responsibility is to represent the communities we have been elected to serve. Residents have genuine questions, legitimate concerns, and they deserve to know that we are prepared to speak up for them, and we must do responsibly. We should reject divisive language and discrimination wherever it appears. It's entirely possible to oppose this proposal while remaining compassionate towards those seeking asylum. Those two positions are not contradictory. The motion strikes that balance. It recognises the national challenge. It acknowledges our humanitarian responsibilities, but it also clearly states that this particular site is a wrong location because of its rural setting, constrained infrastructure, proximity to a primary school, and a likely impact on local communities and services. It also commits us to engaging constructively with the Home Office, making an evidence-based case and ensuring local voices are heard. This is exactly the approach the Council should should take. So today I urge colleagues to support this motion, not because we oppose people seeking asylum, but because we believe decisions of this significance should be made at the right place for the right reasons and with proper regard for both the communities and those who need our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoffensperger. Councillor Mason.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the concerns of residents of Barnham are understandable and deserve to be taken seriously. Our job of councillors is to examine the facts, ask difficult questions and make sure local communities are properly represented and protected. On the information currently available, I do not believe RAF Barnham is a suitable location for a facility of this nature and scale. The dramatic increase in population will simply overwhelm the village. This is a rural site with limited local infrastructure, constrained transport links and practical pressures that would affect both surrounding communities and those accommodated there. This should not be seen simply as a question of where people can be physically be housed. It's about whether the location is suitable, where services can cope and whether the right support can realistically be put in place. The Home Office have said lessons have been learned since at Wethersfield in Essex. Okay, that's welcome, but warm words about lessons learned are not a plan. We need to know exactly what those lessons are and how they would be applied here in West Suffolk. So before the Home Office goes any further, it should answer some straightforward questions. What is the ultimate capacity of the site? They state 1,250, but at other sites it has actually increased over time beyond what was initially planned. What types of healthcare provision would actually be delivered on site and who would fund it? What impact assessments have been carried out on local services and indeed the local community? What transport arrangements would be in place? What support would be provided to local authorities and emergency services? And how would local residents raise concerns and get timely answers? The debate must be clear, calm and robust. My objection is only rooted in practical concerns about whether RAF Barnham is suitable, whether local services can cope and whether the Home Office has actually made a sound decision. We should support an orderly, fair and properly managed asylum system underpinned by the rule of law. But when central government takes decisions with local consequences, those consequences must simply not be passed on to residents and local services. The people of West Suffolk should not be expected to take this on trust. There simply hasn't been enough consultation. RAF Barnham is the wrong site for a proposal of this nature, and the Home Office must hear this clearly and calmly and robustly from this council. This is exactly what this motion seeks to do, and for this reason, I'm pleased to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor O'Driscoll.
Yes, thank you, Chair. During the weekend, I made the fatal error of reading comments on social media. Not surprisingly, like most of us here, we were interested to know what was happening at Barnham. What I read, I found very distressing, very upsetting, and I did not think it was representative of the county that I call home. West Suffolk is a welcoming district. It has a long history of supporting people fleeing conflict and oppression. But that isn't what today's motion is about. It's about the council's response to the genuine concerns of residents and of our partners about the scale of the centre being considered. And I think it's important that we remember that it is about it being considered by the government, and particularly about its impact on a small rural community, both in terms of infrastructure and other social issues. I think it's fair to say that there is also great concern about the well-being of the individuals who could be housed at the proposed centre. So what the motion calls for is a grown-up discussion with the government where we can exchange views about those concerns and arrive at the right decision. I'm fully supportive of the motion in front of us, and I would encourage all public figures to act with a calm head and to do their best to have a cool and calm discussion about these issues and not inflame them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Driscoll. Councillor London.
Thank you, Chair. Let me run through how things are usually done. Earlier today, at a meeting of the Development Control Committee, we debated 187 house development in Ixworth. This planning process started over a decade ago, moved to a site allocation in the local plan and through multiple rounds of negotiations and consultation with hundreds of people and organisations through a multi-year period until it was debated today. That level of robust scrutiny is vitally important. This scheme before us now has none of the same scrutiny and will see 3 times the number of people housed. Quite aside from any unsavoury rhetoric about immigration, this is a plan to triple the size of a local community with zero regards to due process. I do feel it is possible for us to build a fair and humane immigration system, but ignoring all principles of good governance is not the right way to do this. Simply put, this is the most egregious example of overdevelopment I have ever seen, and one with the least level of democratic oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor London. Councillor Whittle.
So this council has the support that it needs in opposing these discussions with the government. But I would like to ask, what specific concrete and measurable actions will this council take, both immediately and in the long term, to protect the safety and freedom of lone women and girls who currently dog walk, exercise, travel to work or school to drop their children off at local primary school, which is only 2 minutes away from RAF Barnham, or simply to go away about their daily business in these areas? And how will you demonstrate that residents, that citizens will not be forced to further change their way of life out of fear? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whittle. Councillor Lukanik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will vote in favour of the motion, but my concern is that the proposed development sits within an SPA, that's a special protected area, and is subject to the habitat regulations. Yes, Mr. Chairman, you've guessed it. Our friend the stone curlew is never very far away. If we relax the regulations at Barnham, then we will have to relax the regulations in Brandon, which is highly unlikely. And we don't really want to be accused of double standards, Mr. Chairman. As I said earlier, I will vote in favour of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lukanik. Councillor Major.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much indeed. Numerous residents from Moreton Hall has risen to me in great concern of the proposed site of Barnham. They wish very strongly to say that they do not believe they are in any way, true or shape or form anti-immigration and basically accommodating people within West Suffolk. But they do believe that they should have been given a say through their elected representatives. So therefore, please, when we do go back to the government and we say to them that the motion we put forward to them is for engagement, that engagement is on the basis that if we are to have a new Prime Minister that really is going to talk about localism, then that should actually be at the forefront of what is currently happening. So therefore, we should have a very, very strong case to put in front of Andy Burnham. And this is national politics, because it is national politics that's coming to us. Localism means that we have a say in what was being imposed on us. This has been very, very short notice. We should be allowed to be consulted with. This is not the right site, and we should very much be allowed to put forward a different site. This council has always pushed above its weight. We have built more houses than we've had to do, and we have always delivered. Today, we have mustered most of our 65 elected representatives at West Suffolk with only 3 days' notice. We can pull above our weight when we need to. West Suffolk is a very good council, and the government should treat us accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Major. Councillor Glossop.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to say very much now because a lot of the things I was going to say have already been said, but I would like to offer my support to Councillor Andrew Smith with this motion. I would just like to say that my ward, the villages, are very close to what's happening. And district councillors are the ones who are the closest to the rural communities and give support to the residents. We're always hearing from central government about devolution, localism, and local communities will have more power. But this is just lip service, because this has shown this doesn't happen, and that makes me very disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glossop. Councillor Rout.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to repeat anything that's been said already. I don't think any of us can pretend to know Barnham better than the local member, the local parish council, or the local residents. And we've heard loud and clear from them why RAF Barnham is the wrong location, and about the lack of consultation and the dissatisfaction with the way this process has been conducted. But I don't think it would be right, Mr. Chairman, to let this debate pass without, I think, and I know I speak for the local county councillor on this, Harry Richardson, let this debate pass without recognising the work of Councillor Smith and the local parish on this. I think as ward members, facing something like this is incredibly daunting, and as a parish council, even more daunting. And I think we need to recognise the speed with which they have moved and the efforts that they have put in on behalf of their community. I'd also like to pay tribute to the leader and Councillor Smith for the way they've pulled together, I think, a very well worded cross-party motion, and indeed the way across politics, from MPs through to leaders of the county council to the leader of this district council and our group, that this has united people behind a clear message around the location. There will be those that try and drag this debate left or right, and I think it's commendable that our politicians haven't done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rout. Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say thank you to most of the people here that I've heard speaking today. I think it's an overwhelming outpouring of people who have been very level-headed, non-judgmental about the characters that may be coming. However, we do need to bear in mind that this is about our obligation to the welfare and well-being of members of our community. And that includes members that come to join our community, as well as those that are already there. The information that came from the government, all right, it did come at very short notice, but it only said to consider. So this motion is a response to their consideration. It is to give them additional information for them to make that decision. And I'd just like to thank all the people, including the chair of Barnham, who we met with only yesterday, because everybody involved has had such a level-headed approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. I have no more speakers. I'm just going to say it's been a privilege to be here today. It's been very reasonable, very, very intelligent discussion. I hoped there wouldn't be any repetition, and I counted 12 different issues until Councillor Lucanik came up with stone curlews, which I was not the issue, but the member who came up with it. And thank you very much, everybody. I now close business. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Nearly got it right. I now ask Councillor Waterman to close the debate.
Thanks very much. And I hope before you close business, Peter, you'll allow Council to vote on the motion. Yeah, excellent. I'd like to thank all the councillors who've spoken this afternoon for their calm and focused words and for their regard for both our residents and also for the needs of the wider community, including asylum seekers. And by and large, most people avoid making wider political points which are not relevant. And like you, Peter, I feel proud to be the leader of a council that can behave in such a, I can't say statesperson-like manner and debate what can be a very difficult topic without sliding into that unnecessary rhetoric. So I won't say more. I'll just say thank you very much, everyone. And I would love to be able to go to the Home Office and say I've got the unanimous support of my council when I'm talking to them about these difficult issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Waterman. That concludes the debate. I know. That concludes the debate.
Okay, sorry, apologies.
Don't panic. We now move to the vote. All those in favour?
Any again?
Put your hands down. Yes, all those. Any against? I don't see any hands. And any abstentions?
Unanimous, Chair.
No. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. I now close business. Thank you very much, everybody.